Yes.
Well, a very good evening, everyone, and welcome to In the Blue Corner, Sunday edition here with Vince Loccisano, and normally it's Stephen Katib on the other side of the screen, but tonight it's a far better looking version. He'll be upset at me for saying that, won't he, Beachy? Welcome to you, Chris Beach. Thank you very much for covering for Steve tonight.
No, thank you, Vince. Great to be here as always, helping you out. You've covered for us on the Wednesday edition when we've covered the team selections, so it's only fair that I return the favour.
Well, it's much appreciated, mate. And of course, tonight, everyone, we're going to be reviewing the 4 fantastic finals games that we've just seen over the last, the last 3 days since Thursday night. So there's been some absolute bottlers in there, so lots to cover. We'll also talk a little bit of VFL and a little bit of AFLW towards the end of the show. So if you'd like to contribute at any stage and give us your opinion, you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, please do so. Just go to our Facebook page, In the Blue Corner, and put up your questions there or your comments. Or alternatively, go to our YouTube channel of the same name, In the Blue Corner. And we look forward to your participation tonight. All right. Well, Beachy, we didn't have any Carlton AFL to talk about or to watch over the weekend, unfortunately, thanks to us bowing out of the finals. But it was nevertheless very entertaining to watch the 4 finals that were on show over the last 3 days.
Yes, exactly. And as I was saying to you, Vince, off air, they were all corkers of games to watch. If you were neutral, which obviously you and I would have been, Vince, we were just sat back and just enjoyed the show. Starting with Thursday night up in Brisbane between 2 feline cats, if you want to call it that between them, the lions and the tigers.
Lions and tigers, yeah, the 2 jungle cats.
Yes, exactly. A bit of a rumble in the jungle, if you want to call it, up at the Gabatoir.
Yes, that's right, the Gabatoir. I like that. Yes, it was a great game, wasn't it? And really, at various times I thought Richmond had got this, but they just never quite were able to pull away from Brisbane. And just when you thought they had them on their knees or up against the ropes, Brisbane would counter punch and get another goal or 2 back and never, stay with Richmond for the majority of the game. And of course, we got to that final quarter, and we'll no doubt talk about the controversial score review that happened there. But basically, in the end, look, it could have gone either way, as we've said, but it was the only final where both sides scored over 100 points, which is quite normal up there at the Gabba, isn't it? That it's a high-scoring game.
Yes, it is, and we'll touch on the controversial score review in a moment, but we've got to give credit to Lockie Neal, who Richmond just left alone, because 39 touches in a game where it doesn't get any bigger, probably, aside from a grand final.
Yeah.
And he just ran rampant. I mean, everyone stepped up for Brisbane, but the maestro, if you will, for the orchestra was Lockie Neal out of the middle. And he just had his way, and the Tigers just had no answers for him.
Yeah. Yes, Lockie Neal was absolutely superb. Really displayed the form that's making him the Brownlow medal favourite again this year. So the way he's been going, who knows? He might have a second Brownlow medal around his neck come grand final week. But look, let's quickly go over the scores. The final scores were Brisbane 16 goals, 10, 106 to Richmond 16 goals, 8, 104. So just the 2 behinds in it at the end. Both teams were 4 goals, 327 at quarter time. At half time, Richmond held a 1-goal lead, 9-5-59 to 8-5-53. And then at three-quarter time, they again held roughly a goal lead, well, 5 points, 14 goals, 690 to Brisbane's 13 goals, 785. But then in the last quarter, Brisbane kicked 3 goals, 3 to Richmond's 2 goals, 2, and that was enough to get them over the line by 2 points. It was a real seesawing battle, and I mean, look, Brisbane started off with a big negative because their ruckman Oscar what's his name? I was going to say Oscar McDonald. Oscar McInerney. I keep saying McDonald. Oscar McInerney. Yes, he unfortunately got badly injured with the back of someone else's head crashing into his nose, and basically ruled him out with concussion for the rest of the game.
Yep.
I assume that's going to rule him out next week for the semi-final.
Yeah, I think it will. I mean,
so they're going to have to come up with another makeshift ruck division.
Yeah, the concussion protocol will have to kick in there, and as much as he won't be happy about it, you've got to make sure that he's right to go, because you can't have a concussion that lingers. So
well, that's going to really weaken Brisbane against the dual ruck force of Melbourne with Max Gawn and Luke Jackson. That's going to be pretty tough for Brisbane to overcome those two in the ruck next week.
Yes, it is. And I would have thought it's hard enough for them to beat Melbourne as it is anyway, but that's just become even harder, in my opinion, on that one.
Yeah, nevertheless, despite losing him in the ruck, I think they did pretty well in the end. They seemed to at least be competitive in the ruck. And as you said, Lockie Neal was just getting everything at ground level. 39 possessions was amazing, really, when you think about it.
Yes.
I think McCluggage was another fantastic player on the night. Hugh McCluggage, number 6. He had 26 disposals and kicked a goal, laid 6 tackles. I thought he was superb. And, I think there were a lot of players that really contributed to the victory. McStay, I thought, was very important. He was another one that went into the ruck to cover for McInerney. So,
number 25.
he competed hard. Took marks and got 23 possessions for a big man. Kicked the goal. He was very important, I thought, as well. And, of course, guys like Zach Bailey and Dane Zorko, as you'd expect, very nippy around the packs and around the goals as well.
Yes, exactly. And let's not forget Charlie Cameron, number 23.
And he was another one, very important. 3 goals.
Yeah, 3 goals, 1. It could have been 4, but 3 goals, 1 is still better than nothing, as they say in the classics, Vince.
Indeed. And the other guy I want to give a bit of a mention to, because he's much maligned in some respects, but because you don't know whether you're going to get the good version or the bad version of him on any particular day. And I'm talking about Joe Danaher. He kicked 3 goals, and of course the last one was that toe poke that was in the goal square right at the end and managed to put Brisbane in front. So, he can go from hero to zero and back to hero again, all in the one game.
Yes, exactly. He was a bit like that when he was playing for that other team in Melbourne that has the colours of the red and black. But
exactly,
look, we'll worry about that a little bit later, I reckon. But look, he'll be happy with himself to have kicked that winner for Brisbane this week as they get ready for the next game at the MCG.
Yes, and of course the other key position player who also kicked 3 goals and was, I think, very important on the night was Eric Hipwood, number 30, I should say. Yeah, he kicked 3 goals as well. Yep. So he was crucial in getting them back into the game. I think especially in that second quarter when Richmond threatened to pull away, he had a couple of shots for goal that both went through. So that was important for him from a confidence point of view.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. He was looking a bit wayward with some of his kicks when he was hooking them a little bit too far. But, 3 goals, 1 is still a very good stat on the night, and especially when you're contributing to a nice win like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other one, of course, who contributed quite a lot on the night, I thought, was what am I talking about here? Well, Daniel Rich, as usual, you would expect to contribute a lot on the night.
Yes.
His precision kicking is very important, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. He's got a cannon for a leg, and it's very precise with where he kicks it, because it might not hit a target probably all the time, but it's in the vicinity of a target, and someone in that Brisbane Lions jumper will be nearby for them to pick it up. So, look, I'd be pretty happy if I saw Rich's output 17 touches, 15 of those were kicks.
Yeah.
So clearly he backs his kicking ability.
And the other one I'm very impressed with is number 18. How do you pronounce his first name? Is it Kidian?
I thought it. Hang on, it's Coleman. I know that much.
Yeah, it's Coleman. But anyway, Coleman's the surname. But he's really impressive to me. He's a left footer, and he is very efficient with his disposal. And I thought he was an important player on the night. He was often the one. He was often the one that got them out of traffic and kicked the ball out of a pack and kicked it to another Brisbane player with his precision kicking.
Yep, I agree with that. Again, 16 touches, 14 kicks. So again, trusted his kicking ability. But there's something else that was actually quite important for this, and we haven't exactly touched on it yet. But he laid 6 tackles on the evening. 6.
Yes. Yeah, very important. Along with McCluggage and McStay, they were the ones who laid the most tackles. All of them laid 6 tackles each, followed by Harris Andrews and Lincoln McCarthy with 4. So, yeah, he was very important. And for such a slightly built player, it's pretty impressive that Coleman was able to lay 6 effective tackles.
Yep, exactly. I'm in complete agreement. And like we've said earlier already, Vince, they get ready to come down south to the Mecca of football to face the reigning premier.
Indeed, yes, they will. They've earned the right. Big relief for head coach Chris Fagan that they were able to get over Richmond, who threatened all night. They had Dusty Martin back in the side. They had, guys like Lynch kicking goals almost at will, it seemed, at one stage. In fact, let's look at the Richmond contribution. Lynch kicked 3, Revolt kicked 3, Shea Bolton 2, and then singles to Martin, Rioli, Cochin, Cumberland, McIntosh, the other Rioli, Daniel Rioli, Ross, and Sonsi. They were all single goal kickers. Who did you rank as their best player?
Aside from Tom Lynch, who kicked 3 goals too, I'm going to say they're Ruckman, number 25.
Yeah, I agree. He would have been benefited by the fact that Oscar McInerney went off so early in the game in the first 90 seconds. But nevertheless, he still dominated the ruck and also was able to get himself 26 possessions and laid 3 tackles. So it's not like he just ran around and took it easy. He still contributed to the side.
Exactly. And it was 41 hitouts for me as well. Now, I admit, McStay trying to cover for McInerney, who had 10 hitouts himself, but 41 hitouts, that's not to be sneezed at.
No. And of course, young Ben Miller also chipped in with his 14 hitouts as the second ruckman on the night. I thought a lot of Richmond players threatened to bust this game wide open, but they never really did it, did they? Bolton looked very threatening, kicked a couple of fantastic goals. Lynch looked threatening. Jack Revolt looked threatening. Dusty Martin looked like he could do anything at any time, but never did.
No,
I think
exactly.
he kicked one goal in the first quarter where he ran into an open goal. It was basically a gift that he ran into the open goal
he was
with.
at the goal line. Couldn't miss.
Other than that, I don't think he did all that much on the night, really.
Well, yeah, just going through Dusty Martin's stats once I find them. Yep, 1 goal, 15 touches. That's a quiet night by Dusty standards.
And interestingly, Beachy did not lay one tackle.
No,
so
you're right.
There was no defensive side to his game, that's for sure.
No, exactly. Now, there was talk that he was about 80% fit, which is a different story altogether, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I think you know what, you don't get off the hook, in my opinion, because of a rumor that you might be 80% fit. And even if that's true, once you cross that white line, you're fair game. And to me, you're open to criticism if your game's not up to scratch.
No, I'm in complete agreement, Vince. What I was going to say was, my question is, why would you have risked him if he was only 80% fit? When you know damn well that it's a finals game, there's a lot more on the line. I think you would rather have your players at 100% fit rather than 80 or 50, but that's a different story altogether.
All right, let's briefly touch on that goal review there in that last quarter, because that, in some people's opinions, turned the game. It really would have shut the door on Brisbane if it had been paid a goal. I agree with that. Mind you, Lynch, you know, I don't know. I mean, when you're that close to goal, why wouldn't you just do a little banana kick if you wanted to? If you're not prepared to do a normal drop punt because you think the angle's too acute, well then why not do a banana kick on your right foot rather than these left foot kicks that they often get so wrong on their wrong side? See, what he did is he basically kicked the belly of the ball, and that's why it didn't spin the way he would have liked it to. And the ball was deemed to have crossed over the top of the post in the end. Even though the goal umpire said before calling for the score review that he felt it was a goal, it was overruled. Now, did you think that was compelling evidence?
No, I did not think it was compelling evidence at all. I thought we needed to stick with the umpire's call. That's my opinion. And guys, I know there's 6 of you in here, and I'll be bringing up comments soon, but I want everyone's opinions on this as well, please, because I think this is actually a contentious topic, and I think we need to find out what the room thinks about that. Because, look, like I said, I think it should have stayed with the umpire's call. In fact, I would have loved to have seen the angle that the ARC, as they call themselves, saw what they saw and put it into the open public, because what I saw was completely different to what they saw.
Do you think the fact that the crowd didn't cheer like they normally would if it was a clear goal, do you think that that Tom Lynch's own reaction to his own kick, which seemed to indicate that he wasn't, you know, he wasn't celebrating in any way, that's for sure. He was sort of looking like, oh, geez, I think I might have stuffed this up. Do you think that might have come into calculations from these people up in the Arc? Do you think they look at things like that?
Possibly, but
it shouldn't be taken into account, really, should it?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm about to say. It should have no impact, no impact whatsoever on the on what the Arc looks at.
So, in other words, unless there is, I think I used the word compelling. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but unless there's clear evidence to indicate that the umpire's call was incorrect, they should simply go back to the umpire's call.
Yeah, and that's
even if the umpire's call is technically incorrect.
Yeah, that's what I think should have happened. They should have stuck with the umpire's call. I mean, there have been times where we've both been at games, Vince, and said, review complete. Looking at these angles, we can see that there's insufficient evidence to overturn the decision made by the goal umpire. Decision on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
And we all looked at the scoreboard, umpire's call.
Yeah.
They looked at that.
This time they must have felt, though, that the ball clearly went right over the top of the post. They must have felt that was clear evidence. It all comes down to how you interpret the vision that's right in front of your face. I mean, you could probably put 10 people in front of the same screens and get 10 different opinions and get 10 different reasons why. G'day, Jacob.
Yes, exactly.
Good evening to you. Peter Vlahos. It was a sus call. The goal umpire says it was a goal and the footage didn't look definite to overturn it. Yeah, I agree, Peter.
Great example.
Just like Jack
here
Nunes against Richmond.
Great example here.
Yes.
But, look, there's a few other questions we will get to.
Look, I think Damien Hardwick made a good point in his press conference. With all the money we spend on this game and all the money that the AFL has at its disposal, you'd think we could get some decent technology that actually gives us some clear evidence at the goal line, because the whole reason for score reviews was really initially to review goal line decisions. And where I think it's gone out of whack is that now we're trying to assess whether a ball happens to have touched the fingers of a defender 30 metres from the goal line. Now, I don't personally think that we should be doing that. I think that if the umpires can see that it's touched or hear that it's touched, he can call that. And if he doesn't call it, it should be just let go. We shouldn't be reviewing whether a ball got touched 35 metres away. I thought that the technology was purely to determine goals and points and out of bounds at the goal line, and that's it. But now we're bringing in whether a ball is touched and not touched and all this sort of business. I think that's where we've gone off track with it. That's my personal opinion.
No, and that's fair enough, because you look at, to use a different sport for an example here, Vince. You look at the round ball, the soccer ball. And they look at goal line technology to see how far the ball has crossed over.
The goal line technology in soccer is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And you see, if it's over, then they will go to that. If it's not over, then they will tell you just like that.
Exactly.
We implement something a little bit similar to that, or do we need to trust the technology and say we need to keep back in this? Because based off what I saw on Thursday night, I think we need to look at better technology and better goal line technology to tell us what actually is.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I guess the Brisbane crowd were pretty happy that it got overturned, and in the end, the ball went back down the other end, and instead of being, a goal and a half down, all of a sudden, they weren't a goal and a half down anymore, and I think they were only about 3 or 4 points down at that stage. So then the ball went back down the other end, and Joe Danaher got that toe poke in, and the ball bounced up and over the goal line, and all of a sudden Brisbane were in front. What a fantastic victory! It'll be one of the best finals victories that they'll ever experience, and now they earn the right to play Melbourne this Friday night at the MCG.
Yes, exactly. And before we move on to the next game, I have some questions here which are VFL related, which we will touch on shortly, guys. We're just going to go through everything as we go. But there are some great questions here that are VFL related, others not so much. But
VFL or AFL?
It's VFL mainly, but there are others that are asking about the latest draft names,
right?
Like this one here. But we will touch on that as much as we can later in the show, guys.
Don't worry, we'll get back to all things Carlton a little bit later on in the show. Let's briefly touch. I won't ask for votes, Beachy. I don't think we'll bother with votes, will we?
No, I don't
Melbourne,
think so.
Melbourne and Sydney Swans. Again, when you look at the action on that game, it was seesawing for much of the game. Melbourne got off to a really good start, 4 goals 1 to 2 goals 3 in the first quarter, so they went in with a 10-point lead at quarter time. I felt that could have been more, but Sydney hit back a little bit. It was the second quarter that really, really made a massive difference to Sydney. They got on a bit of a roll there. They kicked. If you look at the action of that quarter, Melbourne actually kicked the first goal of that game of that quarter, I should say, and in the end, Sydney kicked the last 4 goals of that quarter and went into half time with a bit of a lead.
Yes, exactly. It was
when I say a bit of a lead, 1 goal. So they went from 10 points down to 1 goal in front at half time.
Yes.
6-4
exactly.
to 5-4. And then, of course, they sort of went goal for goal, a bit of a shootout in the third quarter. Sydney kicking 6 goals, 1 to Melbourne's 5 goals, 1. So the 1 goal lead at half time turned into a 2 goal lead at 3-quarter time. And you could just tell then at 3-quarter time, I wonder whether Melbourne's got anything left. I certainly felt that. I think they've spent all their petrol tickets. Even though it was only 2 goals, I thought, there just doesn't seem to be any momentum in the way they move the ball. They were very slow moving the ball, I thought, most of the night. Sydney, on the other hand, were a lot faster in transition. And they kicked 2 goals, 2 to Melbourne's 4 points in the last quarter. So Melbourne didn't even fire a shot in the last, going down by 22 points in the end.
Yes, exactly. And, in that last quarter, Vince, it's my opinion that Sydney just suffocated them. Their pressure just...
Oh, they were enormous.
Absolutely. It was enormous. I forget who it was that made the smother on the goal line as it was snapped by Melbourne. But
yes.
It's little things like that your teammates see, they then live, and it then goes.
They get inspired by that.
It then goes down the other end, and they put it on the scoreboard. Now, there's usually not a stat for that, but it adds up.
My word. Tell you what, you got to admire coaches like John Longmire. I think he's probably been in the job now for a good 12 years, I think. At least 12 at Sydney, maybe even 13. And he seems to be able to get them into the finals most years. I think they dropped out for 1 year, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I think it might have been the first year of COVID. They dropped out of the 8. But then they were back up there last year again, making the finals. Now, they did go out in the first elimination final against GWS last year. But here they are. They've just scored a qualifying final win over the previous year's premiers, and now they earn another week's rest and straight into a home preliminary final. He's got them back up and firing and contending for the premiership.
Exactly. And we should actually point out that this is Sydney's first home prelim since 96.
Since Tony Lockett ticked that famous point to down Essendon by a point.
Yes, exactly. So you would think the good people of Sydney will be looking to get right around that when it comes around.
Yes. What about 2005? When they beat West Coast in the grand final? Where did they play their prelim that year?
I'm going to have to look that up because I
thought that they might have played a prelim that year.
Because I know they played the qualifying final in Perth that year.
I know that they played a semi-final against Geelong, and that was the one where Nick Davis kicked that goal with seconds to go.
Yes, I certainly remember that.
I'm just trying to think of whether they played a prelim after that or whether they had to play in Melbourne or somewhere else. They probably had to play in Melbourne, I imagine.
Yeah, it was the first preliminary final. They played St Kilda
at the MCG. I remember it now. Yeah, I remember it now. Yeah, too good for them. All right. Nevertheless, they can now play their preliminary final at home in 2 weeks' time. Before we move any further on this, what do you think of winning your first qualifying final and getting another week off? I know that helps players that have got injuries and niggles and all the rest of it, but do you think it can take the momentum away from your side by, for starters, having a week off straight after the last home and away game, and then playing a final, and then having another week off. Do you think that can affect their, sort of momentum, if you know what I mean? Only playing one game effectively in about 3 or 4 weeks?
Yeah, I think that can stifle momentum because at this point you have adrenaline running through you as it is. You spoke about it yourself, Vince, white line fever. Once you cross that white line, you know exactly what you want, and you want to make sure that you do your job. You make sure you do that standard. When you get another week off, when you've already had a week off from the last week of the home and away season, for that does sort of stifle it, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not. Look, I know that most clubs would say, give me the win, give me the week off, and give me a home preliminary final, as opposed to playing the following week. All I'm saying is I don't think that it necessarily means the end for clubs like Melbourne and Collingwood who lost their qualifying finals. That's why they get the double chance. That's why they finish top 4, to have that opportunity if they happen to get knocked off in week 1. And at least you continue to play every week. Now, when you're playing finals that are as frantic as the ones we've just seen on the weekend, maybe it's hard to come up week after week from that sort of a game. But yeah, I remember a couple of years ago in 2020, you'll probably recall, Beachy, that Richmond and Geelong both lost their first week's finals, came back and won their semi-finals, and then they ended up playing preliminary finals and knocked off the 2 teams who had had a week's rest. I think Port Adelaide might have been one of them, and Brisbane might have been the other. And in the end, it was Geelong and Richmond who'd both lost their qualifying finals, who played off in the grand final.
Yeah, exactly. And that Port Adelaide Geelong game was in Adelaide, where that's pretty much a hostile environment as it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And Richmond, already been in Queensland.
Yeah.
By this point, they're already used to the conditions.
Yep.
Yeah, they know how the ground plays. They know what the weather does.
Yep.
And their record in Queensland speaks for itself. It is absolutely amazing.
Yep. Yep. All right, let's quickly go over the Melbourne-Sydney game in terms of players that you rated on the night. Who did you think were the big match winners for Sydney?
Big match winners for Sydney. I have 1 second. I'm looking at that. Yeah, I've got Tom Hickey, number 31, is my first player to start.
Yep. Ruckman up against Gawn and Jackson. Yep.
He had 24 hit-outs with 17 disposals, 10 of them kicks, and a goal to go with it. So
played a good game, didn't he?
That's a very good game from him.
24 hit-outs, yeah.
Yep, Callum Mills, number 14. He had 23 touches on the night with a goal, 16 kicks, 7 handballs. Luke Parker, number 26.
Don't forget the tackles, Beachy.
Yes, of course. Callum Mills with 11 tackles.
Huge amount of tackles.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I said that their pressure just suffocated Melbourne in that last quarter.
Yeah,
they just laid into them.
They did,
absolutely. And it's the same with the player I'm about to mention again, Luke Parker, number 26, 11 tackles as well. Sure, he kicked 1 goal and 25 touches.
Yeah.
But again, 11 tackles and making them stick.
Yeah, look, I went for similar players. I thought I gave Luke Parker my best on ground. It was out of him and Callum Mills, and doesn't surprise me that Callum Mills made the All-Australian side. He's an absolute gun, A-grade player now. But you could raffle it between the two of them, to be honest. Luke Parker, Callum Mills for me, and I also thought Tom Hickey did a great job in the ruck. Special mentions to James Rowbottom, I thought
Rowbottom.
number 8. I thought he was a really, really good player. 24 possessions, kicked a goal, laid 8 tackles as well. And the other one who was quite effective up forward was Jake Lloyd, who
Yes.
had probably his best game for the year. 25 possessions and kicked, I think, his first 2 goals of the year. It took 10 marks as well. So, they played really, really well. For Melbourne, gallons in defeat with guys like Oliver. I thought, this guy here, how many votes is he going to poll in the Brownlow? But Clayton Oliver, 29 possessions, 14 kicks, 15 hand passes, laid 8 tackles as well. So not only does he get lots and lots of football of his own, he's also laying tackles when he hasn't got the football.
No,
also kicked 2 very important set shots for goal as well. So can't ask for more from him than what he's already doing.
No, that's right.
I did think, while he's probably had better games, I still think Max Gawn did a mighty job in the ruck, and tried hard all night. I thought Stephen May was also an excellent player, and I thought he had by far and away the best of that duel with Buddy Franklin. The only thing I'd say against him is I thought he got sucked in by Buddy Franklin in that second quarter when Melbourne looked like they were on top. And after that bit of push and shove, they seemed to have lost focus and lost concentration. And Sydney got a couple of goals back. And all of a sudden it was back to less than a goal after Melbourne had about a 3-goal lead over them. So I think that if they look back on that, they'll see that they got sucked in there by Buddy Franklin.
Yes, they did.
Harms, I think Harms might have got reported for something he did there. I personally don't think he should be suspended for what he did there. They reckon it was a little bit high, but I don't think he actually got the guy in the throat or in the neck region at all. Nor do I think he was really deliberately doing anything like that. So I think, and the other thing is that I think it was Jake Lloyd. Was it? Yeah, I think it was Jake Lloyd who did it too. I think he got straight up and continued to play. So that probably tells you that whatever he did wasn't all that harmful to him. So nevertheless, James Harms tried hard. Bailey Fritsch, he can be so good some weeks and so ordinary in others. Tonight I thought he had a really good first half of the game, and the second half he went missing. Kicked 3 goals, so probably from a forward line point of view, he contributed what you could expect of him. I think Melbourne's forward line's a real worry. I just don't see any potency in their key position players. And from a week-to-week basis, they can't necessarily be relied on. I mean, Ben Brown will have a good week one week, and the next week he'll do nothing. This was a week where he did nothing. And the other key position player was Melksham, who kicked 4 goals against Carlton that night. And then he had a shocker last night. He just couldn't kick the ball straight at all. And there was even one where I think he kicked it into the man on the mark. So he'd be probably lucky to hold on to his spot in the side this week. I reckon they might rush back Tom McDonald. You never know, but he had a shocker. And if these key position players don't kick goals, then they're relying on guys like Petrarca to go down there and kick goals. Max Gawn to drift down and kick goals. I just don't think it's a long-term solution for them. It's more of a Band-Aid patch-up job. And this is why I just don't think Melbourne, even if they do beat Brisbane on Friday night, I don't think they'll go any further than the prelim. If they end up playing Geelong, I can't see them beating Geelong.
No, I don't see it. I don't see that happening either. Vince, just quickly back on Harms for a minute. You mentioned you couldn't see him getting suspended. From what I actually understand, now I could be wrong on this, he was actually given a $3,000 fine for his hit on Jake Lloyd. They've already
he was. I didn't hear the news. Sorry.
No, that's right.
There's already been a decision about it, has there?
Yeah, he's been given a $3,000 fine. He'll be right to play.
Well, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that. I thought they might have waited until tomorrow to do that.
That's right. This is what I'm telling you now. So
that's why we always get you on the job, Bitchy. You're always in front of the news.
Thanks, mate. Look, from what I understand,
Sam McClure will eat your heart out.
That'd be ridiculous. Look, anyway, basically, it was graded as airless and medium impact. And
Yeah.
as you said, Vince, he bounced straight back up from the impact. So they considered it and thought, right, that's $3,000 out of your pocket. You'll
Yeah.
be able to play next week.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad because I don't think players should be suspended for that sort of thing. Anyway, I think that was basically the end of it. I mean, Melbourne just don't seem to have the same level of connection and trust amongst each other that they had last year. They just don't appear to be playing with that same togetherness that they had in 2021. So, yeah, they just don't appear. I mean, they looked great in the first 10 weeks of this season, didn't they? But
Yes,
then
they did.
all of a sudden they started playing some really good quality sides that were genuine top 6 and top 8 material, and they started losing games to them. So I think they've been found out a little bit this year. And I think there even some internal rumblings and cultural issues, let's put it that way, have surfaced. And, yeah, they're not quite the same unit. And I say unit, meaning they're not united in what they're doing on game day. And they're also moving the ball very slowly. They've got a lot of this kick it up into the forward line, put it on top of everyone's head. It just gives the defenders so much time to come across and spoil. It doesn't seem to be too much, passing it to a short lead.
No,
Anyway.
exactly. There's not enough of what people have been saying.
Well, yet again, I was worried about their goal scoring ability, and they ended up with 10 goals, 9. So you're not going to win too many games of football only kicking 10 goals.
No.
Next game on Saturday afternoon, the twilight match between Geelong and Collingwood. And here we have another rib tickler of a game. I mean, it went right down to the last, minute and a half? 2 minutes?
Yeah, just about.
It was 72 points each with a couple of minutes to go. And Geelong rolled the dice and managed to find a way through from defence into attack. And the Collingwood defence were caught napping. And in the end, they just about ran into the open goal with that goal that won the game in the end.
Yep, exactly.
And didn't Gary Rowan have an impact when he decided to do something?
Oh, Sydney will be kicking themselves that they let go of him. They will be kicking themselves over that because he's got ice in his veins. There's Gary Rowan, ice in his absolute veins.
Well, I'll tell you what. He's obviously found his niche down there at Geelong because he had a huge impact with what he did. Now, of course, Collingwood got off to a good start, a really good start. They, in fact, scored the first 3 goals of the game before Geelong finally got one towards the end of the first quarter. But then in the second quarter, they turned that around and kicked 3 goals to 1 of their own. So it was only a 1-point lead to Collingwood at half-time. Then, of course, Collingwood kicked 4 goals to 3 in the third quarter and went in with a 7-point lead at 3-quarter time. And I think most people were thinking they might just pull this off. But then Geelong, yet again, put on the afterburners when they needed it and kicked 4 goals to 2 in the last quarter. After at one stage looking like, they were a good goal and a half behind, they managed to find what they needed to find to get back in front. Collingwood would probably consider themselves a little unlucky, but gee, they've won so many of these close ones, Beachy, during the year in the home and away season. But the one that really counts is the one that happens in the finals, and this time they fell short.
Yeah, exactly. And even so, it was only by a goal. So look,
11-12 78 to 10-12 72.
Yep, that's correct. So the pro Carlton supporter in me is saying, thank you. It's about time you dropped one of these close ones, Collingwood, considering how many times this year you've got over the line in them. But
yes.
Look, putting my allegiances aside for the moment, if you were at the MCG as a neutral, you got your money's worth because that was probably one of the games of the round, if not the game of the round for mine.
Yep. Well, again, could have gone either way. So just one of those classic games. Who'd you like on each side, Beachy?
Starting with Geelong.
Yep.
So you mentioned Gary Rowan, so that's it. We'll touch on him in a moment. I'm also going to touch on Tom Atkins, number 30. He's a player that actually just sort of goes unnoticed, but he goes about his business and he just does what's required of him.
Yeah.
He's like, what was it? 9 tackles from 23 touches of the footy.
Yeah.
He's usually a defensive midfielder. He starts in the back line, but he spends some time in the middle, and he just makes an impact. You might not notice him all that much, but he goes about his business almost unnoticed.
He's got a very good defensive side to his game. I think he laid 9 tackles from memory, and I think that was a game high, wasn't it?
Yep, he laid 9 tackles.
Along with the only other player on the ground that matched him was Collingwood's Jordan De Goey, who I thought played the best game I've seen him play for a long time.
Yep, I've got no problem with that. Who else was there?
And by the way, if Collingwood don't re-sign him, they're crazy, personally.
Yeah, exactly.
By all means, put in all of the special conditions you have to around behavioural issues, but they should still sign him up and pay him appropriately for what he's worth.
Yep, exactly.
But I agree with you on Atkins. Yes, he was a very good player, very effective player. Keep going.
Yep, I'm just going through the players that I see here. You know what? I'm going to go a bit out of the box here. Max Holmes, number 9. He got 18 disposals and he laid 4 tackles, but he kicked the sealer for Geelong to win this. And granted, albeit it was from the goal line, so he couldn't miss. But
that's true.
Look, I thought 18 touches, an even spread of kick to handballs, 4 tackles. I thought he did quite well.
Okay.
So then, what else was there? And then I'll go one more for Geelong. I'll probably go obvious here. Joel Selwood, because he's their captain for a reason. He might have had a quietish game by his standards, but 25 touches and 14 handballs. There's a 14 kicks, and 11 handballs with 3 tackles. Always leads from the front.
Good solid game. Yeah, and look, there were very similar contributions made by other Geelong players like Cam Guthrie, number 29, 23 possessions, 7 tackles. Patrick Dangerfield, 22 possessions and 6 tackles. A lot of them did, their fair share of the heavy lifting. Mitch Duncan, another top midfielder, 23 possessions plus a goal. And of course, the rock down there in defence, Tom Stewart, I thought, he was very important down there again, 22 possessions. And I think from a goal-scoring point of view, apart from Gary Rowan's 3 goals, Jeremy Cameron also kicked 3 goals at vital times during that game and, was a big reason why Geelong kept with Collingwood and, in fact, got them back into the game quite a lot with his goals, Jeremy Cameron. Yep. From a Collingwood perspective, I thought they probably had the best players on the ground from an individual point of view. I said De Goey, I thought he was best on the ground. Yep. The other one I thought, the other players I thought were worthy of mention were Josh Dacos with his 29 possessions, 8 marks, kicked a lovely goal. Pendlebury, 34. I mean, again, just keeps keeps performing in big games, doesn't he? Scott Pendlebury, the captain.
Yep.
5 tackles as well. Young Noble, number 9, he did well. Again, 27 possessions, 4 tackles. So all these players are getting lots of ball, but they're also laying their fair share of tackles as well. Then you've got the ruckman there. I thought he did quite well. Cameron, 25 hit-outs, 14 possessions as well, and laid 7 tackles. You can't expect the ruckman to do too much more than that. So I thought he was terrific, and their defenders as well. Maynard, Chris Moore, etc. They really played well. Jeremy Howe. It was a great game. It was almost a pity that there had to be a loser.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you ask most Carlton people who they'd prefer to lose, they'd say Collingwood. So I think most Carlton supporters were going up to Collingwood this weekend saying, you picked on us last week, didn't you? Because you beat us by a point. Now you got your just desserts. You got beaten by a goal in the final. So stick that where it fits. Anyway.
Yes, exactly.
All righty. Now we'll move on to the last of the finals.
Yep.
Fremantle versus the Western Bulldogs. Now this threatened early to be a total blowout. I actually didn't watch the first half of this game. Because I was out at dinner last night. But I was keeping an eye on the score, and I thought, oh my God, look at this. Western Bulldogs are 42-1. They held a 41-point lead. I think it was about halfway through, or roughly halfway through the second quarter. And I thought, what is going on here in Perth? Surely Fremantle are not that bad. Then I thought, well, maybe they've got a bit of stage fright. Maybe they haven't had too many finals, some of these guys. In fact, the most experienced players in their side would be, Mundy and Walters, because Fife was out injured. Yep. So there wouldn't be too many players who played in finals for Fremantle since Ross Lyon was coaching them back in about 2013 when they made their grand final. And 2015, I think they finished on top of the ladder, but ended up losing to Hawthorn, I think, in the first final, and ended up not even making the grand final. But there wouldn't be too many players in that side that have actually played in finals before. So maybe that's why, because the Western Bulldogs have played in quite a few finals series over the last half a dozen years. But then all of a sudden things turned around. They kicked the next 4 goals and went in at halftime only 15 points down. So when you look at the quarter-by-quarter scores, quarter time, Western Bulldogs were 5-5-35 to 1 point. So they held a 34-point lead at quarter time. Then they scored the first goal of the second quarter and a point. So they went to 6-6-42, which was their halftime score, by the way, to Fremantle a point. Now, at that point, Fremantle scored the next 4 goals and 2 points to finish at 4 goals, 3, and only 15 points down at half time. And I thought, hang on, this is game on again here. They've come right back. And obviously had a lot of momentum. And by 3/4 time, they scored another 3 goals to 1, and were only a goal behind. And you could just see that the Bulldogs were struggling. In fact, after their first quarter blitz of 5 goals, the next 3 quarters, they only scored 1 goal in each of those quarters. And Fremantle scored 4 goals, 3 goals, and 4 goals for the next 3 quarters. So is it any surprise that in the end they ran away with it, 11-7-73 to 8-12-60? Great win by Fremantle. That's a very impressive comeback. To be 41 points down, you're probably entitled to think, oh, geez, game over here. But they fought back and ended up winning.
No,
13-point victory in the end. So they turned that around to the tune of 54 points. When they were 41 points down, they outscored the Bulldogs by 9 goals after that.
And that's what makes this amazing, because as people have said, Vince, when it gets to finals, it's a different ball game. And this
Hey
is
Chris,
the
what
perfect-
odds could you have got? What odds could you have got for Fremantle when they were 1 point to the Bulldogs 42? If you had your faith in the side, you'd have whacked it on then, wouldn't you?
My boy would have smacked the
Isn't it funny how we all think of
this?
this after the event? Anyway.
I might have smacked a blueprint on this. I probably would have put a tenner down on it to see what would have happened. But
well, it was another classic, wasn't it? It was a fantastic game and a fitting way to end the first 4 finals. I thought that they did their bit to turn on a really good final in the end. It looked like it was going to be a dud final after quarter time, but geez, it turned out to be a really exciting game. So,
exactly.
who did you rate as the best players of this game?
From a Fremantle perspective,
Yep. I thought it was done on the back of their midfielders, personally.
Well, yeah, I'll touch on them momentarily, but look, Vince, it'd be remiss of me not to mention this guy here, their big boy in the ruck, number 4, Sean Darcy, 47 hit outs.
Yep.
From 15 touches of the footy, 9 kicks, 6 handballs. Sure, he only took 1 mark for the game, but he also laid 3 tackles. But I tell you what, Vince, if you're getting 47 hit outs in a game where most people would have thought, oh, this game is done. They're not getting anywhere near this. But, he dug in, he got the hit outs, which gave their midfield silver service to the likes of Sarong, Brayshaw, Cox, Akers, Ryan, Young. It was all. Look, they've not all would have been in the midfield, but they would have been around the ball, waiting for him to tap it down to them. So really, Sean Darcy for me, he's number 4. I mentioned Caleb Sarong, 33 touches, 6 tackles, almost an even kick to handball to go with the goal. Then we've got Brayshaw, Brayshaw, I should say, 32 touches, 19 kicks and a goal with 2 tackles. So not many tackles by some, but look, that didn't matter because, again, Fremantle's pressure late in the game just suffocated the Dogs.
And there's no better example of that than the one where Ed Richards got the ball in the half back, well, actually sort of around the back pocket area, and looked like he was just sizing up his options and, about to get on his left foot there in the back pocket, and that run down and chased by, I think it was young Frederick, wasn't it, number 32?
Michael Frederick,
Yeah, what a fantastic chase down. He did kick the ball, but it was he was pushed off of it, so he didn't kick it exactly the way he wanted to. And Michael Walters, it went straight into his hands, and then he just curled it around his body and kicked it through for a goal, and that was effectively game over right then and there.
Yeah, exactly. And he
was no better example of the forward pressure. Yeah.
No, exactly. And he got 3 goals, 3 on the night, did Michael Walters, affectionately known as Sonny.
Yes, Sonny Walters,
he was very, very impressive. And, you mentioned before at the start, you probably could have heard a pin drop at Optus Stadium with the Fremantle crowd being that quiet at the 42 points to 1 point mark.
Yeah.
But then once Fremantle turned it on, the crowd then lifted, gave them the noise. They then fed off that energy, and the next thing you know, the Dogs just couldn't get themselves composed.
That's right. Yeah, look, again, I have to say, from a Fremantle point of view, I thought Sarong and Brayshaw were clearly the 2 best players on the ground, along with a very underrated player called Luke Ryan, number 13. What a player he's turned out to be. Fantastic. And also, I'm quite impressed with the leadership of what's his name? Alex Pearce down there at, in the back line for Fremantle. He's a very important person to their back line. And he does a lot of those little things that the spoils, the knock-ons, the intercepts, all that sort of thing. It doesn't necessarily go on the stat sheet, but geez, he's important down there in the back line. But I thought Sarong, Brayshaw, Hayden Young, another very important player, number 26. They all came right into the game. You mentioned Walters with his 3 goals. Also, I want to give a bit of a mention to Rory Lobb, who I thought was important in getting them back in the game as well in that third quarter as well. I think he kicked a couple of important goals. And also a big mention to 24, just a young kid. I think he had a bit of an operation during the year. Jaya Miss, I think his name is.
Yes, Jaya Miss. Yep.
And he was also an important player, kicked a couple of important goals during the game. So they all contributed. They did really well. And in the end, the Doggies had no answers. I thought Bontempelli was clearly their best player over the whole night, but he was more impacting in the first quarter. After that, he lost a bit of impact, in my opinion.
Yes, he did.
Jack McRae as well. Look, they racked up plenty of possessions, but they didn't hurt the opposition with them. And same with Caleb Daniel down there in that half-back line. Didn't really hurt the opposition with his 29 possessions. Treloar, Hunter, they all had their mid-20s. But, again, didn't really have an impact. Bailey Smith looked threatening, but never ended up delivering. So, didn't hit the scoreboard. Guys like that need to hit the scoreboard for the Bulldogs to have a victory. Even Aaron Norton did not kick a goal for the game. So they need players like that to be hitting the scoreboard if they're going to win.
Yeah.
Well, it's season over for the Western Bulldogs. They happened to celebrate last week when Carlton failed to beat Collingwood, and I think they were in an airport lounge down in Tasmania after just having beaten Hawthorn, waiting to see what the result was between Carlton and Collingwood. And they probably thought it wasn't going to happen when we were 4 goals up or something like that against Collingwood. And all of a sudden, they celebrated when Collingwood got over the line against us. But their finals journey has already been ceased after the first round.
Yep.
Fremantle, home team, they've had their win. I can't help but feel that Fremantle and Brisbane, being the 2 winners of the 2 elimination finals, have had their day in the sun in front of their home crowds in Perth and in Brisbane, respectively. But I don't think that either one of them will probably make it past next week when they both have to travel to Melbourne and play the Demons in Brisbane's case and play Collingwood in Fremantle's case. I don't think either of those 2 interstate sides will progress any further. I could be wrong, but that's my view. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I don't see Fremantle knocking off Collingwood, although the pro Carlton supporter in me don't like how that happened. But look, like I said, putting my allegiances aside for the moment, look, as I said to you off air, Collingwood have had their way on the MCG for a number of weeks. They've got a great coach in Craig McRae, who I rate very highly. They believe in the system that he impacts. They lap it up. They listen to him, and they play for each other. So that's something that's important for him. Now, just on that, they will be missing Taylor Adams for this game against the Dockers, who is a critical player to their structure.
Yeah, I think he's gone for the year. He's done his groin, hasn't he?
From what I've heard, Vince, it was torn off the bone. So he is done.
Well, that's not a good injury.
No,
even going into next year, it's not a good injury. It would probably stuff him up for the whole pre-season, I would have thought.
If
that's the case.
Yeah. Yes. Peter Vlahos is saying Freo may have a chance, Brisbane not. Look, I like your comment. I like your confidence, Peter, but I think I'm going to wait and see how it plays out because, as I said,
Well, if I was to guess who might have a chance, look, my thinking is this: Brisbane, yes, they don't. Well, they haven't up till now played very well at the MCG, and they've also been thrashed by Melbourne both at the MCG during the year and also at the Gabba in the last game of the year. But it's amazing how finals can turn things around. They've got the tall timber to do it. Melbourne don't seem to have the tall timber up forward that's really gelling together all that well. I would have thought if any side had a chance to cause the upset, it might have been Brisbane against Melbourne, not the other way around.
Right.
Anyway,
that's fair.
We're all entitled to an opinion. So, Peter, thank you for yours.
Yep.
What else have we got? Okay, so that's our prediction. So you're in agreement with me that both Melbourne and Collingwood will proceed to the preliminary. Try saying that with a mouthful of marbles. Preliminary finals.
Yep.
So Geelong, if that's the case, will play the winner of Melbourne and Brisbane.
Yep.
And Sydney Swans up at the SCG will play the winner of Collingwood and Fremantle. I'll tell you what, wouldn't a Sydney-Collingwood game be an absolute rip snorter up there in Sydney?
Oh, absolutely. And I've said to a few Collingwood supporting mates of mine, there are three things certain in life with your club: debt, taxes, and a game up in Sydney against the Swans. They'll be pretty sick of that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, if Melbourne get through, they'll be up against Geelong, and Geelong would have to be the red-hot favourites now to win the grand final, I would have thought. But plenty of things have happened. You never know.
Absolutely.
It does look like being a Geelong-Sydney grand final based on the fact that they both won their qualifying finals and both earned a week's rest. But, AFL finals can throw up some curveballs now and then. All right.
Absolutely, it can.
Now, Beachy, let's just quickly touch on VFL because Carlton's VFL team last week were the only source of joy for Carlton supporters in beating Collingwood at Victoria Park in the first final, elimination final, and they won comfortably up there. Now, they had to go up to Brisbane and play the Brisbane Lions in a semi-final yesterday. Do you want to give us a bit of a condensed summary of what happened there?
Yep, absolutely. So, as everybody knows already, we played Collingwood last week at Victoria Park and beat them, which was good. So we had to travel to the Moreton Bay Central Sports Complex, which is in a suburb of Brisbane called Burpengary, which is about a 40-minute drive north of the city of Brisbane itself.
Yep.
Now, from what I saw on the TV, it was wet, and it was pretty much wet for most of the game. So that would have made things very interesting. But unfortunately, to cut a long story short, Brisbane knocked us off by 2 goals, 11-6, 72 to 8 goals, 12-60.
So we had 3 more scoring shots, 20 to their 17, but we lost the game by 2 goals.
Yes, and I should point, and I will point this out in a second, but I will go through the quarter-by-quarter scores because that's what we do. So Brisbane kicked 3 goals, 2-20 to 1 goal, 6.
In the first quarter.
Then we pegged it back to 4 goals, 4 apiece in the second quarter. So
half-time, scores level.
Yep, so by this point, I'm thinking, okay, we've settled, we've got ourselves into the conditions. We just need to keep ourselves composed, play our game, and we'll win. That's no problem.
Yep.
Then from the third quarter, it just didn't work. 9 goals, 6 to Brisbane to 5 goals, 4. We kicked 1
So that's
goal
the quarter that probably cost us the game. 5 goals, 2 to 1 goal straight. So that's the second time to that same end that we only kicked the 1 goal for the quarter.
Yeah, and we
came first quarter and third quarter, 1 goal only.
Yep, and we came home with the breeze in the last because there was a bit of wind at the Moreton Bay Sports Complex because it's a very open ground.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we kicked 3 goals, 8 in the last quarter.
Wow. 3 goals, 8.
We pegged it back to level scoring, to the scores level. But unfortunately, Brisbane just had 2 chances.
Yeah.
And they kicked them both. They kicked them both, and we just couldn't go over them.
Yeah. Right. Well, it looks like the second quarter and the last quarter, when we had the win, we kicked 3 goals 4 in quarter number 2 and 3 goals 8 in quarter number 4. So if that had been 8 goals 3 instead of 3 goals 8, we win the game.
Absolutely. And we would have been playing Melbourne's reserves, aka the KC Demons, out at North.
The all-conquering KC Demons, who only lost 1 game right at the end of the home and away season.
Who, funnily enough, that was against the team that we were playing on the weekend. They lost it to Brisbane.
Yeah. Well, and they lost it away too. I think it was in a similar vein at the same ground.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah.
So Brisbane move on now, and of course today, the other VFL game, it was held at the Blacktown International Sports Park. The Sydney Swans reserves kicking 12 goals, 15-87. Again, 3 more scoring shots than their opponents, but lost the game to the Gold Coast Suns reserves, 15 goals, 9-99. So Gold Coast, 2-goal winners over the Sydney Swans in a similar fashion to what Brisbane did to us. Less scoring shots, but more accurate.
Yep, exactly. And they now get ready to face the Southport Sharks in what's pretty much going to be classified as a Gold Coast showdown of sorts.
Yeah, Gold Coast Derby. Yeah.
Because, it's
showdown, derby, we'll call it what you want. Q clash, another version of a Q clash.
Yeah, on the Gold Coast.
Let's go back to our game because we're all about Carlton here. Who were the players? I know we lost the game, and so that's season over for the VFL as well. Who were the players that really stood out there and obviously playing for their football careers in a lot of ways?
Well, it's no surprise to me that at VFL level, Paddy Dow stood out once again. He had 41 touches with 1 goal, 20 kicks, 21 handballs, 7 tackles.
Wow, that's a big game.
Yeah, a very, very big game.
Yeah.
Jack Carroll had 32 touches, number 16.
That's good to see.
18 of those were kicks, 14 handballs.
Yep.
Didn't lay a tackle, but okay. Liam Stocker, number 13, 25 touches, 17 kicks.
Yep.
Didn't lay a tackle. Will Setterfield, 23 touches, 12 kicks, 9 tackles for the game with 11 handballs. So he was trying to apply the pressure, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Will Hayes, number 40, 22 touches, 5 tackles, 13 kicks.
Yep.
And then...
What about key position players like Sam Durden and Brodie Kemp? How did they go?
Okay, so Sam Durden I have here. He had 15 touches.
Yep.
With 11 kicks, 2 tackles. Brodie Kemp, 13 touches, 7 kicks, 2 tackles with 6 handballs and a goal.
What about young Jesse Motlop, who played a bit of senior football as well this year? He was he qualified to play for the reserves.
Yep. Sorry, 11 touches. 11 touches, 5 kicks, 6 handballs, 3 tackles.
Yep.
Murkov.
The ruckman, the big ruckman, 7-foot ruckman he is.
He actually sort of went unnoticed for mine, but he had 52 hit outs for the game. and we've lost by 2 goals.
When you've been when you're 7 foot tall, you're probably going to get the majority of the hit outs, aren't you?
Yes, you are.
But the question is, what else does he do around the ground? Probably not a lot.
Yeah. No, exactly. But look.
And what about young Dominic Akwae? Is he someone that you can see getting another go on the rookie list, or is he just not up to this level?
No, I would like us to give him another chance. It's his first year. We want to make sure that he is developed right.
Okay.
Because people like you, Vince, have also said that we haven't had a habit of developing our players properly. Here is a chance for us to start with that.
Yep.
With Dom Akwae.
Yep. All right then, Beachy. Thanks very much for the VFL wrap. So we're out, and now you're going to have 2 preliminary finals next week: Casey Demons versus the Brisbane Lions, and the Southport Sharks versus the Gold Coast Suns. So one of the Queensland teams will be in a VFL Grand Final. That's good to see, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
And you might even have 2 Queensland teams in the final, because if Brisbane happens to knock off the odds-on favourites Casey, which, you know, they only knocked them off a couple of weeks back, it might be a Brisbane versus Gold Coast or Brisbane versus Southport Grand Final.
And the best part about this,
in the Victorian Football League.
And the best part about this, Vince, is that the grand final is at Icon Park.
Is it really? I thought they normally do the grand final at Marvel Stadium, don't they?
No, they're going back to Icon Park.
That's a good move. That's a good move.
Yes, exactly. With Icon Park looking a lot better than what she was looking like back in the day. Looking quite.
And I think it's a nice venue to have it. If it's going to be a day grand final, nothing worse than having to play it under the roof at Marvel Stadium where there's no atmosphere really. I would have thought a day grand final at Icon Park's a lot better appearance wise. Well, wouldn't that be interesting? 2 Queensland sides battling it out for the Victorian Football League grand final. Oh, dear me. What a shambles of a competition. But anyway, we should also touch on the girls.
Yes.
As well as the non-binary players as well that qualify to play women's football. Not sure why they qualify, but they do. AFLW.
Yes.
The girls had a big win today over certainly from a traditional point of view, Carlton and Essendon are big rivals, but Essendon are the brand new team in the AFLW this year, or one of the 4 new teams. So 2 Carlton players defected and went to Essendon. Both very good players too, by the way. One of them an absolute champion, if you ask me, Madison Prasparkas. And, of course, Georgia G as well. But we had our revenge.
We did.
What was the final score, Beachy?
So the final score, Vince, Carlton, 5 goals, 2-32 to Essendon, 4 goals, 7-31. It was
again 7 scoring shots to 11, but we win.
It was a 1-point victory.
1 point
to Carlton, in a very, very, very interesting game by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually attended the game out at Northport Oval this morning / this afternoon.
Yes, it was at Port Melbourne, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes. And
these days they call it ETU Stadium.
Well, it's been under so many names, Vince.
What's ETU stand for? Is that the Electrical Trades Union? Is that what they mean by ETU?
I would suspect so. God knows why.
They're sponsoring a ground, are they? Must have money to burn, these unions. Go on. Anyway,
so look, like I said, I actually went to the game today. Good crowd there, which was good to see, considering 2 rivals.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it was pretty much Carlton just dominating most of it. The quarter-by-quarter scores was 2 goals, 1 Carlton to 1 goal, 2. Then we kicked a goal to make it 3-1-19. They kicked a point to make it 1-goal, 3-9. So we had a 10-point lead. They then kicked another 2 behinds, 1-goal, 5, and we kicked 2 goals, 1 in the third quarter. And then
So three-quarter time, we're 5-2-32, and they're 1-goal, 5-11. So we've got a 21-point lead, but then we didn't score at all in the last quarter. Essendon must have come back hard.
Gave that lead up. We almost gave that lead up. They kicked 3 goals to Essendon.
Wow.
They kicked 3 goals to 20 to add nothing. They played one good quarter of footy, Essendon, and they almost stole it.
Yeah.
It got quite interesting when Madison Prespakis, who I'm not going to lie, is an absolute gun in this competition, and I am picking myself, along with every current supporter, that this club let her go, along with Georgia G.
Yeah.
So, look, leaving that to one side, they had 2 chances late, did Essendon, and they were by the same player, who, funnily enough, was also a Carlton player herself, in Joanne Doonan, the Irish girl.
Yep.
But she hit the post the first time to take it, and then she had another chance later in the game, and she put it right. So that was, so you could say most of us were breathing a sigh of relief, but it was very, very heart attack stuff by the end of it, Vince. And as I said earlier,
so we're a bit lucky to get away with it then, by the sounds of it.
Yes, we were, because Essendon were coming hard, and we weren't able to get it out of our defence for most of the game. And even when we did get it out of our defence, sooner or later, when it got stuck in there, in our forward line, they then got it out and then went almost coast to coast.
Yeah.
Like I said,
tell me something, Beachy. Can you see? Can you see our women's team winning many games?
So we play Port Adelaide next week at Icon Park.
So there's another team that's just come into the competition.
Yep, that's on a
They've
Sunday.
also lost both of their games so far.
Yep, but they have a player by the name of Erin Phillips, who is a former Crow and has the success in this competition to back it up.
Yes.
So they're going to have to be on their guard here for that one, Vince.
Okay.
Do I see us beating Port Adelaide? Yes, but I don't think it's going to be by much. Port Adelaide, I watched them play against West Coast Eagles. They ran out of legs in the last quarter, but they looked very, very willing to get the power. So I wouldn't be taking them lightly if I was Carlton for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, the girls have had a win. So out of the 18 teams, we're 11th on the ladder. 1 win, 1 loss. Percentage of only 74.6, but still early days. So at least they had a win. They're on the board.
Yes, exactly. And that will do the girls' confidence a world of good, knocking off a fierce rival like Essendon like that.
Yep. Indeed. All right. We got any comments or questions that are worthy? You mentioned it before. You wanted to put up some questions, or
it's funny you mentioned this earlier, Vince, because the VFL got a bit of a mention here while we were talking, and Jacob's come up with will Setterfield keep his spot?
As in on the Carlton list?
Yeah.
Well, put it this way: if he doesn't, it's because he's going to get traded. If he doesn't get traded, I think he does keep his spot. I think he's done quite a good job in the last 3 or 4 weeks to justify persisting with. And I'm not just talking at VFL level. I'm talking at senior level. He does seem to be a bit hot and cold. Like he'll have a really good game one week and then go cold the next. But I think if we just keep playing him consistently, give him his role at the right part of the ground, play him in his rightful position, I think we can look forward to having Will Setterfield stay on the list. Yeah, I do think he will keep his spot, Jacob.
No yep, I tend to agree.
I would have said halfway through the season, no way, but I think he's just done enough to to justify keeping his spot.
Yep. And yeah, we threw him as an inside midfielder within the last few weeks, and he was actually noticed by Michael Voss. So if we can keep him as an inside mid at various points, just as a rotator, I think we can do something with him.
Yeah, he's also a very good medical sub because he can play, in lots of different parts of the ground. Right, who else? What do we got next?
Peter Vlahos. What's with Kelton in their final quarters? Round 23, then the VFL semi-final, and then today's AFLW match.
Good point, Peter. I'm not sure if it's I'm not sure if it's something that's one reason and it applies to all three different teams, but I don't know. It's a good question, isn't it? I mean, what makes a team go completely into their shells for an entire quarter? What is that? It's got to be upstairs, doesn't it? You'd have to say it's a mental thing, not a physical thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm really not sure. I think, the AFLW match today, obviously, we went into our shells and Essendon decided to just play with a lot more free-flowing style and just thought, well, let's just throw everything we've got at this. So they probably took a lot more risks. Isn't it amazing how much better the quality of football is when a team decides we've got nothing to lose here, we've just got to throw everything at it, and they just play with that sort of gay abandon and they just throw everything at it, and all of a sudden they start playing free-flowing football and it's really good to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
but anyway, I'm not sure, Peter. If I knew the answer, I'd probably make a fortune selling it to Carlton.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
And then you'd be passing on the formula to why the Carlton supporters who then keep it under wraps.
Exactly.
So then Jacob pipes up again. He says, "We threw that game in the VFL. Hey, boys." Yeah, look, 3 goals late, Jacob.
Well,
doing that.
Look, obviously the conditions were slippery. There was raining. The conditions weren't probably ideal. It's generally hot and humid up there in north of Brisbane at this time of year. I don't want to make excuses, but at the same time, both sides have got to play in the same conditions, don't they, Beachy? So Brisbane obviously played them a bit better than we did, but we squandered opportunities. Bad kicking for goal often costs you games.
Yep.
And it also is deflating for the players that are working their backsides off to give the forwards that sort of goal-scoring opportunity. And when they get squandered, it is deflating for the players that are really boring in and working their bums off. Yep, whereas when they take advantage of those scoring opportunities and kick goals, then all of a sudden it doesn't feel like they're working quite as hard. Anyway.
Yeah. So then Jacob pipes up again. He says, "Who are the latest draft names?" Now, I haven't been keeping my eye on that as of yet. I mean, we've still got the finals to worry about. So if anybody has heard anything, feel free to drop it in because...
Well, apparently Carlton are right into young Akers over there at Fremantle, and I was watching him last night, and I was quite impressed with him. I thought if we are into this guy, we're probably going to get a pretty good player. I thought he was quite impressive. He's 26, like he'll be 27 in about a month. He's no spring chicken. He's played. What's he played? He has to have played nearly 100 games by now, wouldn't he?
Oh, I reckon.
I think he's. I think what we're looking to do here is to fill the gaps where we are deficient. Now we've delisted. In fact, I'll ask you about this, Beachy. We've delisted 3 players. Luke Parks, who was a halfback flanker. Jack Nunes, who was a wingman, played over 200 games in the end, but now he's been delisted. Just on the eve of his 30th birthday, I think in February. So he's probably still got a couple of years that he could offer somebody, Jack Nunes, but I'm not sure if he'll get another opportunity at age 30. And the other one, of course, is Oscar McDonald, who just can't seem to get himself physically right. So I think Oscar might, he's not that old, but we might have seen the last of him as an AFL footballer. What do you think of those 3D listings? To answer Jacob's question, I think we're now going after targeted type of play. Well, we're targeting players to specifically cover deficiencies that we've got. And I think the two glaring ones are the wings and maybe, just maybe, the ruck. I'm not sure that we should be totally satisfied with Pitnet and De Koning. And, yeah, if we can get ourselves a top-line ruckman to start things off in the middle, I think we'll make life a lot easier for ourselves. What do you think?
Well, before I go on to that, Akers has played 112 games in total.
Yeah.
He was Western Quarter first, 75 games there, and he's played 37 with 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So 112 in total. Anyway, my opinion. Look, I thought Parks was quite stiff. I actually like the look of him. From what I saw, he was hitting to hurt people, but unfortunately, he was just consistently injured, and the club have said, "Right, we're not going to get much more out of you, so we're going to move you on." Unfortunately, same with Oscar McDonald. I like the look of him as well, but his back just kept giving him grief, and he couldn't quite find a way to get himself back in. Jack Newnes, well, at this current time, he's going to go down into Carlton folklore as the one that kicked the goal after the siren for us against the Dockers in Perth. But he's played pretty much all season, and the club must be thinking, right, we think you're done.
There must still be big question. There must have still been big question marks on him because he still kept getting dropped here and there. He still would have been dropped at least 3 or 4 times for the year.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned it yourself, Vince. If we're targeting players like Akers, which it sounds like we are, then Akers and Newnes is going to be in trouble in terms of finding a position for him in the squad.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that we've had to make these delistings, and let's not forget we actually mutually agreed to let Tom Williamson leave the club due to mental health.
Yes.
What I also found interesting after that is that he actually went to another VFL club like North Melbourne and played there. So make up what you will of that. But
tell me something.
There's 4 delisteds already.
There's one other player. I'm not going to ask you about all the other players except for one.
Right.
Ed Curnow. I was almost expecting to hear a resignation, or not a resignation, a retirement announcement by now. But he hasn't announced any retirements. It would appear, due to the lack of a decision on anything, that he wants to keep going. Otherwise, what's the delay? What's stopping him? If he was going to retire, you'd expect him to have done it by now, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
In fact, you might have even expected it to happen before the Collingwood game, so that he could get, a cavalcade around the MCG. Maybe he'd rather do that on grand final day. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, look.
But I've got a feeling he wants to go around again. He'll be 33 in November, I think.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm like you. I thought there would have been a retirement announcement by now. But from the people that I have heard from that are Carlton fans like myself, Charlie Curnow was saying, I want to play with my brother again. So maybe, just maybe, I don't know, just maybe that's what the club are hoping for, that they can make that happen. But at this point, I've said this at the start of the year too, Vince, when you've got a midfield that's stacked by the likes of Cripps, Walsh, Terra, Hewitt,
and Kennedy.
And Kennedy as well. How are you going to fit him in?
Well, this is the point. Charlie can say, I want to play with my brother again all he likes, but his brother's going to have to be fit and in form and worthy of a spot in the team. Now,
exactly.
I don't know, maybe Ed's just written off the year as a bad year injury-wise, and he's going to come back bigger and better next year. It sounds like it because I haven't heard any retirement decisions. But anyway, all right, Beachy, I think we're probably done for this week. We've gone well over an hour and a half here. So unless there's any other questions or comments that we need to address, I think we've pretty much wrapped up our review of the AFL Finals Week 1, as well as the VFL and AFLW competitions as they progress. So, mate, I can't thank you enough for covering for me, or for covering for Steve anyway, and joining me tonight. Much appreciated. And I think Steve's going to be away next week, so it's likely that we'll see each other again next Sunday night at 8 o'clock.
I think that's what the intention was. Joe did give me the heads up that Steve was going to be away tonight and next week.
Yep.
So I'll be back again next Sunday for you.
That sounds terrific, mate. Well, I very much look forward to that. And to you out there, our viewers, we also thank you for your participation tonight and hope that you can join both Chris and myself next Sunday night at 8 o'clock as we wrap up the 2 semi-finals between Melbourne and Brisbane at the MCG. That's at 7:50 p.m. next Friday night, the 9th of September. And, of course, the other semi-final between Collingwood and the Fremantle Dockers, also at the MCG on Saturday, the 10th of September at 7:25 p.m. So if you can, get yourself a ticket to go to either or both of those finals. It's been absolutely sensational to watch so far. No doubt those of you who have attended any of these finals can vouch for how exciting they've been so far. It's been good to watch. Yeah. All right, so join us next week on In the Blue Corner. And until then, Beachy, what do we always say?
It's good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night and go Blues.
Go Blues.